8:17. So how are you feeling about Monday morning? Maybe later in the week for other secondary school children, but most we think will be back on Monday in school uniforms that we hope still fit, with haircuts that might need a little bit of work over the weekend, or hairdos that need a bit of work. It's tricky, all of this. There's so much to take on board. The last day of homeschooling after a good few weeks this, and no more online lessons after today. Beth and Nimmo has been listening into some of those last Google Classroom meetups and those online registrations, and finding out whether children are looking forward to seeing their friends and teachers in real life. These are the classes at Sutton Courtenay Primary School. This is lovely.
Good morning. How are you all doing? You okay? Give me a wave.
Classrooms have looked a little different during COVID.
This time.
With most children working from home, schools have been forced to embrace technology, but it's not always been easy.
So far, so good. I can see all your faces today. The internet hasn't dropped out on us yet, so can we put our fingers crossed so that I can see you all today?
Lianne Vickers teaches years 3 and 4.
We've had hiccups with our internet and things like that. So, you're very reliant on outside influences when you're relying on online teaching. Whereas when you're in the classroom, it's far much more under your own control. India, is that breakfast you're having?
So how do 7-year-olds handle online lessons?
Because they're that little bit younger as well, keeping their attention and their focus is really interesting. So we have lots of siblings that pop up in the background and dogs and cats that are up here. I think I know the names of all the different pets that are at home now. For 7 and 8-year-olds mainly, they have done an incredible job, and I'm so super proud of them.
From Monday, though, kids can go back to school. It's an exciting time, but also nerve-wracking for many. Zoe Parks is the teacher for years 5 and 6.
They're incredibly excited coming back. They really want to be learning together again, and they really want to see their friends. But that sense of isolation has stuck with them, and it's something we're going to have to do. Lots of pair and teamwork, trying to bring the children back together and re-establish friendships that are very strong, but will be awkward when the children first get back together. And we're going to look at question 3.
And there might even be a few things that some of them miss about their online lessons.
We've had fun with my parents' dog because it can jump very high, so that we had a bit of a competition to try and guess how high the dog can jump. We've played every day. We either do an online game together as a class through our classroom meet, which we've been having every day, so that can be anything from playing socks or no socks, which they love, or finding objects beginning with certain letters or different type of objects, so sending them off on a treasure hunt around the house.
But in the end, nothing's quite the same as seeing your friends and teachers face to face. So even though there might be a few moans and groans at the breakfast table on Monday morning, teachers here believe kids will be very relieved to get back to the real-life classroom.
Beth and Nimmo, socks or no socks is the game to end all games. It's good fun, actually. You can see more from Sutton Courtenay Primary Politics South, Sunday, 10 a.m. on BBC One. So what's being done to keep everybody safe next week? Here's Claire, who's got 3 children, 2 going back to primary school in Kidlington next week. I spoke to her a little earlier.
I feel quite good. It's been quite intense because I've been doing all the homeschooling. My husband's job's been a bit crazy for the last few months, so the pressure's been sort of all on me. Some of it I'm going to miss. I think you quite like to have that happy balance, wouldn't you? But I think it's time for them to get back to normal. I think after a morning of tears yesterday, I kind of relaxed going into the last 2 days, and then we had a bit of a blip day yesterday. So I think they need it as much as anything. But they've been really good we've not been sort of over-communicated. So they pulled all the information together, and then we had one big email with everything there. School have been really good at clear communication, and I would say it's not lip service to safety. They've got genuine plans to ensure that everything works properly.
There's so much to think about and consider here for parents and pupils, and for teachers as well, and for the rest of us, because this is the first time since lockdown in January that things are slowly starting to open up again. And everybody, I'm sure, is feeling a little anxious. Perhaps you live near a school, or you're likely to go out to shops where the children will be pouring out of the bus at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lots to talk about. And from the pupils' point of view, the first time they will have been back with their friends in many, many weeks. It's like going back after the summer holiday and then some, with all of the loaded anxieties of the last year. Here's EJ Fawcett, who goes to Larkmead in Abingdon. They're a secondary school where testing's been introduced twice a week, and she says she's looking forward to it.
It's been pretty weird because there's been barely anyone in, but it has meant that we've been able to socially distance really well. So I've actually felt fairly safe going to school at the moment, but I'm nervous about what's going to happen when everyone else comes back. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some people. It's been quite difficult because of the lockdown rules and only being able to meet up with one person at a time to go and exercise. So this is going to be the first opportunity for a lot of us to see some of our friends in a couple of months.
Well, Rob Pavey is the head teacher of Cheney School in Oxford. Goodness, Rob, good morning to you again. I'm just thinking the number of times you and I have spoken over the last few months, and every time it's something new that you have to get your head around. How are you feeling then about next week?
Very, very positive. Like the two previous clips said, it's good to get back to school. The kids need it, the staff need it, parents need it. Like the mum said, people have done an amazing job, actually. Parents, children, teachers over the last, over the last year. But really, trying to get back to normal now is definitely a good thing.
What's the biggest challenge for next week, Rob? Is it the testing of all of the children? And how on earth is that going to work? I can hear the sigh there in your voice. How on earth is this going to work for you?
Well, the testing is yes. The testing is a big piece of work, but it's going to be over quickly. We're doing all 1,600 students on Monday, and we will then do the second test later in the week, and the third test will be done the following Monday. So we're going to have it all done, all three tests we're supposed to do quickly. But that's just a logistical challenge. And there's one thing that teachers are good at is getting large numbers of children to stand in straight lines and go where they're supposed to. So we can manage that. That's fine. Clearly, trying to be a school at the same time as being a mass testing centre is not quite so easy. But the main challenge actually was alluded to in both of your previous clips. There are some children who have really thrived over lockdown. There are some children who have been in school all the way through and have done very well, actually, and have built up really strong relationships with the staff. But it's going to be a bit of a nervous time coming back to school. Mostly that's going to be hugely positive, but for some kids, it's going to be a bit of a concern. And what we're hoping we're going to manage to do is to keep a little bit of a happy medium so that the children who do find it anxiety invoking will be able to have a slightly more gradual reintroduction, and we'll be able to, because we can live stream all of our lessons. So for children who do find this a big worry, so we can try and do a bit of a bespoke, tailored package to suit each child.
That's interesting. So some children, if they are struggling, could still be choose to stay at home for a few days, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely, because they won't miss any lessons. So we can now do that, and we've got a number of children who, for a whole variety of reasons, have actually done an awful lot better without the real stress and busyness of a big secondary 1,600 kids. Because if you just on a normal corridor, 7 classrooms down a corridor, nothing unusual. But at the end of lessons, the sound of 200 teenagers coming onto a corridor, if you're not used to it, or if you're a bit sensitive to noise or to overstimulation, it sounds a bit like the end of the world.
I can imagine. And how are your staff feeling, Rob, as well? Because you've got to look after the staff. Well, you look after everybody. Are they okay?
Yes. I think we're all, frankly, really looking forward to getting back to a bit of normality. Of course, there are some staff who are quite reasonably a little concerned, but we've done individualised risk assessments for all of the staff who have concerns, and we've come to sensible arrangements. For example, there are some who are clinically vulnerable and have only just had the vaccine. It's going to take 3 weeks for it to kick in, according to their GP. So we are putting in place a different way of working for the first 3 weeks until they can come back full time.
It occurs to me teaching is such a different job now, Rob. I mean, fundamentally it's the same thing, but it's so different, isn't it, to what I suspect you and many of your colleagues got into this for in the first place. And watching my son's teachers on the Zoom or whatever it was we had the other night, the briefing for my son's secondary, the length to which they were talking about mental health and well-being and things that had very little to do with academia, actually. It's a lot more going on for you now, isn't there?
Yes, but in the end, it comes down to the same thing. Being a teacher and learning properly is about relationships, and it's not about exam grades and so on and so forth. It's about building a relationship with a group of young people, which then allows them to learn positively. Now, at the best of times, that of course doing that effectively with every child in the school is the big challenge, and this has added an extra layer of complexity. It's not fundamentally different. It's just a bit more complicated than usual.
Rob, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I always enjoy our conversations. Thank you for coming on this morning. And all the best for Monday, you and everybody there at Cheney School. There's the headmaster, Rob Pavey. There's an awful lot going on here. It's a big deal, this, over the weekend, as I said in my introduction a few minutes ago. Whether you have children at school or not at the moment, we've all got, if you excuse the American phrase, skin in this game. 0808 100 9100. How are you feeling about this element of lockdown lifting on Monday with so many children going back to school? Do you think it's too soon? Perhaps you do. If you've got children going back, how are they feeling? And how are you feeling as a parent? From my own point of view, it means that for the first time this year, in our house at least, my wife and I are out of control a little bit because the children will be out mixing again during the day, and my son will be travelling on a bus with many other children. When that bus pulls into town and the windows are all steamed up again, suddenly, there is a level of anxiety that goes along with that. 0808 100 9100. How are you feeling about it all? We'll talk about that after 9 this morning, but get your calls in now. And at 9:30, 1 hour from now, Dr. Rachel Ward, Didcot GP, will be here. Any questions you've got about COVID this week, particularly I suspect around vaccinations and the jab and where we are, that's at 9:30, but call as soon as you can. Coming up, thank you very much. 25 minutes to 9. Good morning if you've just turned us on. Hope everything's all right with you. How are you feeling about back to school next week then, whether you have children or not? First stage of back to normal begins Monday morning, round about now, and it will feel very different. 0808 100 9100. Is it right that children go back now? How are you feeling about it? Are you okay with it? So on and so forth after 9. Also, still there on the Matrix as you come into Oxford, blinking in the dark this morning as I came down past Thornhill Park and Ride. Stay at home, save lives. That remains the message for a good few weeks, at least, except for children who don't have to stay at home from Monday. They'll be heading back to school. How do you feel about that? We know that safety measures will be in place. An email has just pinged in the last few moments from my my daughter's primary school, talking about lateral testings, that her households and support bubbles should be doing this and telling us where as parents we can get lateral tests from. They have rolled out these lateral tests all over the place at the moment. They are quite easy, it seems, relatively speaking, to get hold of. So you can regularly test yourself to make sure that you are safe and that you don't have the coronavirus. But nonetheless, there is an anxiety that comes with the children going back because this is the first time in a number of weeks where things are out of our control again. As I've said a few times, it's giving me a level of anxiety, and that my son will be getting back on the school bus, back into a big school. He goes to a huge school, 300 children in his intake this year. I mean, it's massive. It's a big, big school. A lot of children. You've only got to play the numbers game to tell you that that there is a risk involved with that. So suddenly I'm out of control a little bit of what's going on. I'm relatively calm about it. I'm taking the lateral flow tests 3 times a week. He'll be tested 3 times in the next 10 days alone. Plus there's lots of safety measures at the school who have been brilliant, it seems, so far. But I wonder how you're feeling about this, whether you think it's too much, too soon, whether you're worried that it's going to set us back and impact on the other dates, or whether you take the view that actually this has got to happen now. Children need to be in a classroom for what remains of the school year. Pupils in secondary schools and colleges will be advised to wear face coverings as well in all areas if social distancing is not possible. And they've got a lot to deal with next week. Everyone's got a lot to do with children, parents, teachers, and even if you don't have any children in your life at the moment, when you pop out, things are going to be different. Roads are going to be busier and areas around schools are going to be very busy as well. Here's Claire, who's a mum of 3, with 2 going back to primary in Kidlington. She says she's happy with the plans her school has been making.
They've been really good at, we've not been sort of over-communicated. So they pulled all the information together and then we had like one big email with everything there. School have been really good at clear communication, and I would say it's not lip service to safety. They've got genuine plans to ensure that everything works properly.
What about, and here's an aspect, there's so many aspects of this that don't occur immediately. Those children that have been at school all the way along for whatever reason, they will have got used to a rather relaxed, slimmed down environment, run of the school, be able to sit and do whatever they want a lot of the time. Here's EJ Fawcett from Larkmead in Abingdon, a secondary where testing has been taking place twice a week. And she told me, understandably, she's a bit nervous.
It's been pretty weird because there's been barely anyone in, but it has meant that we've been able to socially distance really well. So I've actually felt fairly safe going to school at the moment, but I'm nervous about what's going to happen when everyone else comes back.
How are you feeling about this then this morning? Do you think this is the right decision on Monday? Are you anxious about it? Are you nervous? Or do you think, nope, it's got to happen. This is the right thing. 0808 100 9100. That's my question here this morning. Let's just talk about this. I told you how I'm feeling. How are you feeling about children going back to school next week? Apart from anything else, it's making sure that clothes fit. And where's the PE kit, by the way? And, they need a mask, and they need more than one mask to go in with because they're going to lose it as soon as they get off the school bus. 0808 100 9100. Here's Leslie from Headington. Hello, Leslie. How are you this morning? How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Hi, fine, yes.
Tell me about your children, Leslie. Have you got kids? What's your situation?
Well, I've got grandchildren of school age, and I'm very, very pleased that they're going to be going back. I think it's been a very, very sad time for them. It's affected them generally, most children, quite badly. They need to be back in school. And as an older person, I've now been vaccinated, and most of the cohort of my age group, of the vulnerable people, we've had our first vaccination, so we don't need to worry about our personal safety, that there's more people around. I think we must just look to the future. It's a really good thing to get the children back
Hang on a minute, Leslie. What about the rest of us? I haven't been vaccinated, and my son's catching the COVID Express to school on Tuesday morning.
No, but presumably you're not in the most vulnerable age group if you haven't yet been vaccinated. So if you were to get it, it wouldn't affect you so badly. And
well, I'm 54, Leslie, and have you heard my chest on a bad morning?
No, I think as long as we all stick to the social distancing and the masks and so on, I think the most important thing is to get those children back to school for the sake of their mental health, their social life and their education. And I feel very strongly about that. It's
a huge undertaking for teachers. I don't know if you heard Rob Pavey, headmaster of Cheney School, earlier. I mean, he's effectively running a vaccination centre now, as well as a school.
Well, yes, it is. Obviously, I can see that it's a great burden on the school staff and so on. But all power to them. I think they're doing a grand job. But I think they'll all be glad too to get their pupils back in school. It's a sign that we're getting back to a more normal life, and I think everybody wants that to happen.
Thank you very much for getting us going, Leslie. Thank you for that. It's Leslie in Headington. No worries at all as far as she's concerned. Here's Joe, who runs the Spa Village shop in Hook Norton. You're chair of governors at the school there, are you, Joe? I wasn't aware of that. Good to speak to you this morning. How are you feeling about it all?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think I've got obviously two hats on. I've got one with the parents and children going back from the shop point of view next week, and we'll have some changes there. But also, speaking to staff at school, they're really sort of, they're obviously a little bit anxious with children being back in. But more than anything, they want to get them back in the classroom and teaching them again.
It's a massive transition, though, isn't it? I mean, this is, as I've said a few times this morning, it's like going back after the summer holidays and then some, with all of, apart from the fact that it's a longer period that they've been off. Things have changed a lot over the last few months for them.
Yeah, because before they were doing lesson planning solely for doing in the classroom. Every night they're having to do lesson plans not only for the children that are coming into school, but then having to do a lesson plan for children that are staying at home that are doing online learning. So they're having a double job at the moment, trying to teach the children. So I think it will provide some relief to them. I think it's also not just about the education side of it. It's also about the children's needs in terms of sport, in terms of how they are feeling, their mental well-being. And I think having them back in the classroom is going to assist in getting back to some normal life for both the children and the families.
And presumably, though, at Hook Norton School, they're not going to be wearing masks and so on, are they, during the day? That's
the children. The children won't be wearing masks. They're in their bubbles. There's a 20-page risk assessment for the whole school site that's been done right from day one. But obviously, parents on the playground will be wearing masks as they have done, and certainly staff moving around the corridors and stuff will be wearing masks as well.
See, that's the worry, isn't it? That it's not, we keep saying it's good to get back to normal. This is not normal. And when I look at what's in place at my son's secondary, in terms of having to wear a mask all day long, from the moment they get on the bus until the moment they get home again, they're going to be masked up. That's not normal for 12-year-olds, is it?
No, not at all. And I think, it's something where if they're in their bubbles and in their classrooms in primary, then they're fine. And the head's been brilliant in ensuring that the safety of the children is there right the way through the pandemic.
Really interesting. Thank you very much for coming on this morning, Joe. How's everything in the spa shop, by the way, at the moment? People still behaving in the supermarket, though?
Yeah, they're still behaving. They're coming in as normal. We're looking forward to getting back to some normality with that as well. But everybody's behaving at the moment so far.
So far, touch wood. Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks for coming on. 0808 100 9100. School's back from Monday. How are you feeling about it? Absolutely fine, like Leslie, or are you a little bit concerned and anxious? 0808 100 9100. More coming. BBC. In around 10 minutes, let's go back to talking about how you feel about back to school worries. I mean, it is exciting. This is the first time that the doors are opening again. And we get a little peek at what it looks like to be normal from Monday. And it will feel different. The roads will be a lot busier with school-run traffic. Areas around schools will be busy as they pour out at the end of the day and so on. But how do you feel about that? It comes with a level of anxiety. Bea Stevenson is Head of Education at the Oxford-based charity Family Links, where they're experts in emotional health. And I imagine that your services are in demand at the moment, Bea. Good morning. How are you feeling about it all?
Good morning. Yes, we're really excited at Family Links. Obviously, we've been continuing to work with all of the schools that we in Oxford and nationally through the pandemic as well, and know that they're incredibly well prepared for Monday and have all the systems in place and are really excited about welcoming all of their families back. Of course, lots of the children have been in school throughout this time, but I think all of the schools we work with certainly are really excited about having their whole community back together again.
It is a bit gear change, a bit step changes. It's been that way throughout all of this, hasn't it, from one thing to another? And I suspect we'll get back into the swing of it by the middle of next week. It'll be as though everything's back to normal again. But it does come with worries and concerns for a lot of parents and families, this, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's really important. And this is the work that we do at Family Links, the Centre for Emotional Health, is very much the emphasis on supporting the social and emotional well-being of children as they return, and of staff and of parents, because, of course, as you mentioned earlier, the transition is difficult. There's been a lot of unprecedented changes in everybody's lives this year. And I think one of the most important things for schools as they go back is that we take the time for children to reconnect with each other and with the staff and their teachers, and that parents are given that space to share their concerns and how they're managing the changes too.
What are your main concerns from teachers' points, from the teaching point of view? Do you think that teachers are prepared and they're ready for next week? Because once again, they find themselves on the front line here, don't they?
Absolutely, but I think it's really important to remember that they've continued to be on the front line throughout all of this and have managed these changes so admirably. And all of the senior leadership teams and the teachers that we work with at Family Links have absolutely put everybody's well-being and emotional health as a priority. So I think that they've been supported through this time to manage blended learning, to manage having some of the children in school, some of them at home, and have worked really hard as well, importantly, with parents and families to adjust to the changes. So I think what we've seen, incredible emphasis on supporting those adults in children's lives to be responsive to the children's needs as they've come up, and actually supported them to manage some of the difficulties that have emerged as well.
Thank you, Bea. We'll leave it there. The line's jumping in and out a bit, but thank you very much, Bea Stevenson from Family Links. What do you think about all of this? Here's Les, who says, I'm concerned with my grandchildren heading back to school. I think cases will end up rising again. Malcolm from Abingdon. I work at St Helens School in Abingdon on the cleaning team. We're expecting everyone back on Monday. I'm looking forward to the kids coming back in. There'll be a buzz in the school again. It'll be exciting for everyone to see each other. So much news to catch up on. I wonder if children will even recognise each other. There's a lot of big hair going around right now, which is fine for the younger ones because they just don't care. But I imagine if you are in your early teens and your hair's looking a bit rubbish, that could be tricky as well, and your clothes don't fit and you're bursting out of your trousers or whatever it might be, or your blouse or whatever, and your shoes are tight. There's a lot going on here for everybody with the outfitters closed for the foreseeable future. And just remembering where stuff is when you dumped it back in December. Where did I put those books? 0808 100 9100. More of this coming up. How do you feel about school going back on Monday? It's Rag and Bone 31, Friday morning, and time for a catch-up with Dr. Rachel Ward from Didcot. Haven't spoken to for a couple of weeks. Morning, Rachel. How have you been? Has it been a good week for you and your colleagues?
Morning, David. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's been a busy week as always, but everything is going smoothly. Thank you.
Lots to catch up on. Questions coming in for you. We've only got you for a little while, so it's 0808 100 9100 if you have a question for the doctor. We've been talking about schools going back, Rachel. First big change on Monday, really, as the doors open again. How are you feeling about that? As we've been saying, it comes with a level of anxiety for everybody, I think, this one.
Of course. Look, I have to say I feel very, very positive about the schools going back. I have felt very strongly throughout this that the first thing that needed to get back to normal was schools, because they are so crucial for our young people. And our young people have been so affected by the pandemic. So I feel very positive. And I think anybody who has children can see the positivity and how they're feeling about going back. Now, of course, there is some anxiety. There's some anxiety from the children because they've not been there for a while. There's anxiety from parents because there's an unknown. We've all been staying at home and not doing much. So it's a change. But I think what I would like to reassure people about, David, is that this time there are additional steps in place to keep the children safe, to keep COVID out of the classrooms. Now, the huge rapid testing rollout that is going to be going on in schools and in families of anybody with school is going to make a huge difference. And I would really encourage people to engage with that.
And this is massive. I've just had an email from my daughter's primary in the last half an hour from the deputy head saying, here's where you can get the lateral tests from for your family. We encourage your family to take these tests regularly. I wasn't aware that would be coming out, that we can all get a hold. I mean, we get them at the BBC, as you know, anyway, but anyone's now entitled to get these, which is a massive step forward, isn't it?
It is. So it's all secondary school children themselves, all staff in all levels of schooling, and then the families of children in primary and secondary school, and the families, the households of school staff. So we're talking a huge number of people, and it's really about picking up those cases of asymptomatic COVID so it's not brought into school. So as I say, it's a really easy process. As you say, you've done it, David, for a while, the lateral flow test. I've been doing it for months. It is an easy process. Once you get to grips with it, very easy, very painless. I did a video actually yesterday on all of my social media platforms that shows you how easy it is to do that test. Take a look if you've got any concerns, and it shows you just how quick and easy it is. So
how are we doing with the vaccine rollout at the moment in Oxfordshire? Because I got a sense this week that things, just nationally at least, have slowed down a little bit. Is that a correct reading, or have I got this wrong?
Yeah, I would say that, so we have had some clinics this week, but there is a sense that the vaccine availability has been lower. We were told that that was going to be the case for a couple of weeks. I mean, we're hoping that it's going to pick up now, because we're in this situation where obviously, so the GPs are trying to cover the group 6, which is people with underlying health conditions. We have a lot of those. So, for example, in our area, we have over 6,000 of those. So we need quite a lot of vaccine to get through those people as quickly as possible, because they're all waiting for it. Now, understandably, people want to know when they're getting their vaccine. We are getting huge amounts of calls to the practice, and I know this is happening across the board in GPs at the moment. People wanting to know when their vaccine is, asking if they can be prioritised for it, asking if they can be bumped up the list because of certain jobs. And I just need to reiterate that we cannot do that. We cannot change the criteria. We cannot bump people up the list. So please, it's just a plea. We are getting through as quickly as we can. Please don't use GP appointments to have these discussions.
This is really interesting, the point that now that this big cohort of underlying conditions, which would explain, I think, a lot of people saying, hang on, I've heard of Charlie down the road. He's 42. He's had it. And I keep hearing this time and again. And my answer is, or my response is, well, we don't know people's personal medical history. Yes. Is that fair or not?
It's so important, David. We're seeing that a lot as well. Well, somebody in Abingdon has had their vaccine and they're 10 years younger than me. Please don't make assumptions about people. First of all, different areas have different cohorts, different groups of age, different age pockets, and they will get through to different age groups at different times. But also, you don't know why somebody has been called up for their vaccine, what underlying significant health issue they have that you're not aware of. Everybody is called for a vaccine for a reason. So please have faith in the system and have faith that we are doing things fairly.
Well, here's one for you, Rachel. I haven't heard about this in Oxfordshire, but elsewhere in the country, I have evidence of people who you can go to certain pharmacies if you call up at the right time of day and pop in. There are pharmacists who will say, come in at such and such a time. I can fit you in tomorrow. How are they able to do that? Because that doesn't seem right or fair either.
I haven't heard about that. The only thing that I can think about with that, I don't know if they have some kind of reserve list, if they have some people not turning up and they need to use a few doses out of a vial. I don't know. Certainly the standard approach is that we go through people in the correct priority order, and we still have a backup list, for example, for covering any no-shows of healthcare workers who still haven't had it for one reason or another. So we're not wasting any vaccine, but I'm not really sure how that would work, and I certainly haven't heard of any instances of that.
So you're confident that we're on track at least? I was just looking at the NHS, the phases. We're all those, as you say at the moment, underlying conditions, plus 50 to 69-year-olds, up until the 15th of April before we then get into the next phase, which is... goodness me, we're going right the way down in the age group now. 18 plus, isn't it really? It's 18 to 49s in phase 2.
Yeah. I'll be honest, as things stand, I think our vaccine availability is going to need to ramp up a little bit for us to get through that group 6 by the middle of April. So the other groups will be called to the mass vaccination centres. I think they're doing very well. I think they're doing a great job at the Kassam Stadium. So the 65 to 70 and then the 60 and over, and kind of going down the age groups as we do the underlying health conditions. But as I say, we have a lot of those in Didcot. We're going to need to have some good supplies to get through that to meet that target. But we are set up to deliver it, and we're told that the vaccine's coming through. So I think we have to be positive about it.
Right, some questions for you. This one is from Sheila in Didcot. I've no idea what this is, but Sheila sent this in for you a little earlier.
I'm Sheila from Didcot, and I'd like to know if after this year's dosage of vaccine, will we have to do it sort of every year, so next year and the following year and onward? And
Rachel,
so on.
The idea that, thank you, Sheila, annual jabs, it's being considered, isn't it, is my understanding?
Yes, thank you, Sheila. Good question. We don't know is the answer to this. So as we know, every year we give a flu vaccine, and that covers the new strains, which is prominent and emerged for that winter. It may be the case that we have to do the same with COVID. We don't know. It depends how the virus continues to mutate. It depends how it plays out in our community. But it is certainly a possibility that you will have further COVID vaccines going forward.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I hope that one's answered for you. This is from Kelvin in Wantage. I'm 54 and I got a text from my health centre in Wantage inviting me to get the vaccine. But I heard that 50-year-olds are getting vaccinated in mid-April. Should I do what the text says and book my slot? Oh, yes, you should, shouldn't you, if the text has come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, maybe an instance, and some people are getting called up actually for a vaccine, David, and they're not really sure why it is, but something has pinged up that they do meet the criteria. They have something in their medical history that shows that they are in that group. I would say if you're confident that text is from your health centre, go for it. It's not about waiting till mid-April. No, it's something has pinged in your records and you're eligible for one. So please book it.
On matters away just from health at the moment, but on pay, Rachel, this is all over the news, this morning. It's the top story on the BBC News website at the moment with the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying that the government should give your colleagues, the COVID heroes, particularly a bigger pay rise. And this is following the news that the government's recommending a 1% increase for NHS staff in England next year. Your unions are suggesting it's a kick in the teeth for staff. What would be your response to this? It's always tricky talking about pay, particularly when it comes to the health sector.
Absolutely. So first of all, I would say that this is not related to GPs. So I'm not talking about anything to do with myself here. But I think, first of all, I was talking about this morning on TV, and I think the important thing here is that we all take a step back and we think, how much do we value our health system? The clapping has finished, and that was lovely, but now we're back. We are in reality, and we have to think, how do we want to value these people who have stepped up and the people that are getting us out every single day, looking after our loved ones through this? How do we value them? Do we want these people who have done this incredible job to stay in their roles? My fear, David, is that, even before all of this, we have had massive recruitment and retention issues in healthcare. And that's because the salaries do not match up to the, costs of living for many people in healthcare. And I think we're going to face huge issues with retaining staff in the NHS if they're not paid appropriately. Now, I totally understand that there are many people who will be listening who will say, well, nobody else is getting a pay rise. And also they will be saying, well, hang on a minute, my job's not secure and I've been out of work. But just remember this as well, that this is on the background of many years of basically a lot of people in the NHS having essentially a pay cut every year because their pay rise has not been in line with inflation. So this is not just about this year. This is on the background of many years of there being an issue. So I think we all have to think about how much we do value our healthcare workers and whether we want them to stick around.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Hope you have a good weekend, good surgery and all the rest of it. Thanks for coming on this morning. Thank you for being there.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Dr. Rachel Wall back with us probably next Friday. Always get your questions in nice and early if you can. BBC Radio Oxford, it's 18 minutes to 10 right now. Here's ZZ Top. Get these updates, Kat, on my phone here from Google Classroom from my daughter's teachers, and they give me a headache. They ping in every few minutes, and they're not for me to read, really, because I'm not doing the home learning at the moment. But this one just says here, maths. If you're completing A, the quadrant paper for A and B only goes up to 6. So what am I meant? Yeah, it just gives me a headache. I don't understand.
Good. You're giving me a headache now. I'm thinking about it.
Every time I hear one of these things, read one of these things, I come out in a bit of a cold thing, a bit of a hot sweat, cold sweat, whatever. Anyway.
It's all coming to an end.
Coming to an end. Yes, it is. How are you?
Well, not too bad, actually. We're going to mark the last day of homeschooling. And Betsy, of course, back in the classroom on Monday, as your children are as well. But I can't find her pea shorts. I can't find her plimsolls. I can't find half of her uniform, and the other half doesn't fit. What am I to do? So we'll talk about that this morning.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thanks very much. You too.